Now, a BBC investigation's discovered that multiple signs of slavery were missed after 9 men were trafficked from the Czech Republic and forced to work at a UK McDonald's restaurant by a criminal gang. Other victims were enslaved and put to work at a factory supplying bread products to major food retailers. Baroness Theresa May, who introduced anti-slavery legislation, says the case raises shocking questions about how big companies address modern slavery. With more, here's John Ironmonger.
Rescuing slavery victims from a London house and a criminal operation lasting 7 years.
Got 2 in here. Just 1 in there.
It was terrible to wake up every morning, and I didn't want to wake up. I'd rather be dead.
Forced to live in an attic and an unheated, leaking out building, victims were found legitimate jobs by a criminal gang led by brothers Ernest and Steněk Drevenok, who referred to them as livestock and stole hundreds of thousands of pounds from their wages to fund luxury lifestyles, new cars, gold jewellery and foreign holidays. 9 victims were sent to work at this Cambridgeshire McDonald's, where they clocked up to 100 hours a week.
The managers didn't question the long hours I did. They would even ask me, "Are you happy to stay longer?"
We've discovered that McDonald's and the franchisees running the branch missed multiple opportunities to detect the crime. Job applications were completed by gang members, victims' wages paid into bank accounts controlled by the gang, and victims worked extreme hours.
We use the term red flag to say this is an indicator that forced labour, modern slavery might be happening. And in my view, there were many red flags in this case which were missed.
In a statement, McDonald's told us they commissioned an independent review and with their franchisees, who unknowingly employed the victims of slavery, have taken action to strengthen the ability of our people and systems to detect and deter potential risks, such as shared bank accounts, excessive working hours and reviewing the use of interpreters in interviews.
I think it definitely should act as a wake-up call for all companies. Professional curiosity goes an awful long way when considering and looking out for modern slavery.
The victims were also forced by the criminal gang to work in a London factory, making and supplying own brand pita bread for 6 of the UK's biggest food retailers: Tesco, Sainsbury's, M&S, Waitrose, Co-op and Asda. None spotted the signs of slavery at the time the victims worked there. Sainsbury's says it stopped using the supplier in 2016 for unrelated reasons. M&S, Tesco and Waitrose all say they pulled out due to concerns about working practices. The Co-op says it carried out inspections but found no signs of slavery, while Asda says it was disappointed to learn of the historic case and would carry out a thorough review. It's almost 10 years since then Home Secretary Baroness Theresa May introduced the Modern Slavery Act.
I think the case has raised some shocking questions about the approach being taken by some big companies. They need to look at their supply chains, they need to look at their processes. Do we need to enhance the Modern Slavery Act? Yes, I think we do.
You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit the offence of holding another in slavery.
Ending years of misery for victims, in 2019 the gangmasters were arrested in the UK and the Czech Republic.
That was the best feeling I've ever had. I was so happy it was over.
While the criminal gang has been put on trial and put behind bars, their victims are still waiting for an apology from the companies who failed them. John Ironmonger, BBC News, Cambridge.
Lots in that report to discuss, and I'm joined now by James Clary, the CEO of Justice and Care. That's a charity which has supported several victims of modern slavery, and James has also attended some of the court cases mentioned in that investigation. Welcome to BBC News. As I say, there's plenty to unpick there. First of all, I'd like to ask you how widespread you think this is in the UK.
Thanks, Regini. We know that in the UK there are over 100,000 victims of modern slavery. It is everywhere. It's in every town, in every city across the UK, in businesses that we'll all be familiar with, in nail bars, in car washes. There's a growing problem in the adult care sector. and criminals are making a lot of money. It's big business and it's brutal.
So if it's hiding in plain sight, is enough being done? And if not, what needs to be done?
So the UK was one of the leading countries back in 2015 when it introduced the Modern Slavery Act that put a burden on businesses in the UK over a certain size to publish a statement that they were tackling modern slavery. Unfortunately, in the last 10 years, very little more has been done, and we've gone backwards. Other countries are doing a lot more than the UK. So a lot more could be done. The police force are under-resourced. There are only a handful of specialist police forces around the UK who understand modern slavery. The Met Police and the Cambridgeshire Police who are working on this case did an outstanding job, but they don't have the resources to cover the size of this problem.
You talk about, well, it was mentioned in the report as well, but some of the signs that might indicate that modern slavery is going on. Just to remind our viewers of what some of those are so that businesses and indeed individuals would be able to pick up on it if they thought that these signs were there.
Yes, yeah, of course. All of your viewers today can help fight this wicked crime by spotting signs and then reporting them to the police. So, for example, if you see an unusually large number of people living together, workers being collected and dropped off in one vehicle, a lack of protective equipment, or someone living on the site of work, that is almost certainly signs of slavery in the workplace. If you see different males visiting a property for a short time at all times of the day and night, victims showing signs of physical abuse and being under control, these can be signs of women being subjected to sexual exploitation. And if you're concerned that somebody rarely leaves home where they're working, they're being abused and not having many personal possessions, they're all signs of domestic servitude. So never be worried about making a mistake. The police will investigate your report. You're not wasting their time. They'd rather have 25 mistaken cases of exploitation rather than risk missing a victim of modern slavery. So please do call the police or report it to the Modern Slavery Helpline or Crime Stoppers.
And what more should businesses and companies who might be employing people who are enslaved unwittingly, unknowingly, what more should they be doing to make sure there are better checks, and how should they be held to account better?
Yeah, there are some companies doing really good things. But unfortunately, we don't go far enough. And in this case, we saw McDonald's plus a number of supermarkets who weren't asking enough questions about what was happening in their supply chain. In the UK, you can be legally compliant, even if you publish a statement to say that you've taken no steps to address modern slavery. We just don't go far enough. In the EU and around the world, there are lots of other regulations that require companies to complete full due diligence, and failure to do so would lead to a penalty of 5% of their global turnover. We do not have that in the UK, and so there isn't a level playing field at the moment, and companies are required to do one thing under one law and another under another. The UK could do a lot more. And my advice is, if you work in a business, there are some red flags that you could learn from in this case. The fact that we had workers in McDonald's who were working up to 100 hours a week, sometimes doing shifts of 30 hours, that their money was paid into the bank account of another person. In fact, 4 people's money was paid into one person's bank account. These are red flags that the managers at the McDonald's franchise should have picked up. And so we could be doing more.
OK, thank you so much, James Clary there from Justice and Care. And just to say that McDonald's UK said it had improved systems for spotting potential risks. And the British Retail Consortium has said more generally that its members would learn from the specific case that was mentioned in that report.